All right, this is the last review for chapter 6. You guys have your test tomorrow. Let me just quickly go over what's going to be on your test. Your test is going to be 20 questions. Out of those 20 questions, 10 of them are multiple choice. And out of those 10 multiple choice questions, you're going to have 5 that are sometimes, always, never. How are you going to study for that? You may see some of the questions again, but study 6.2 and 6.3. So that tells you which triangle relations are inside, outside, on the triangle, or which ones are always in the triangle. So you have to know that. You also have to know or remember if it's an equilateral triangle, you can't have altitudes, medians, angle bisectors, perpendicular bisectors that overlap. So you can have them overlap sometimes when it's an equilateral. Yes?
15 questions or 20 questions?
It's 20 questions, but 10 out of those 20 are multiple choice. And out of those 10 multiple choice questions, 5 of them are sometimes, always, never. So it's 5 sometimes, always, never, 5 multiple choice solving, and then 10 free response. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay. So that is kind of how you study for the sometimes, always, never. Everything on the reviews, you guys are set. Everything that we've covered, you will see in some way, shape, or form on the test. But again, it's just the sometimes, always, or never. Just review the vocabulary for the orthocenter, circumcenter, in-center, centroid. So that, again, the diagram with all of those is found on 6.3, the last slide. So if you want to look that over as well. So let's go ahead and get started on the 6.1 review. Again, I have the answers on here. I'm just going to kind of go through it. But if you have a question, let me know and I'll answer it. So 6.1, part B, numbers 1, 2, and 3, they want you to tell whether the information in the diagram allows you to conclude that point P lies on a perpendicular bisector of RS or on the angle bisector of angle DEF. Explain your reasoning. So when I'm looking at 1, looking at this, I see that there are no perpendicular symbols here, and my segments are not congruent. So yeah, even though that this is bisecting, this may not be perpendicular, so this is no. Number 2, the same thing with angle bisectors. I don't know if this is bisecting my angles, and I don't know if these segments are going to be congruent. So again, for all we know, this could be not bisecting by a degree, but this is also going to be no. I can't tell if they're congruent or if it's bisecting. And then for number 3, the last one, P is on the angle bisector. How can I tell? Because these segments right here are going to be congruent, which means my angles are also congruent. So this is converse of angle bisector theorem, and this one was yes. Okay, I can tell that P is an angle bisector. All right, number 4, it says find the indicated measure, explain your reasoning. This is also on Canvas as a PDF if you want to look at it as well. So looking at number 4, this is going to be converse of angle or of perpendicular bisector theorem. So when I'm looking at it, when it's converse of perpendicular bisector theorem, I know that these two segments are going to be equal. So first thing I have to do is set it equal to x, and then I have to solve for x. Keep in mind they're not asking for x. They're asking for AC, which is the entire line. So you just take one of these measurements, which I took the first one. I solved it plugging in, and I got 18. So this segment is 18 as well as this segment, and if they're asking for the entire thing, add them together and you're going to get 36. Looking at number 6. This one's converse of angle bisector theorem. So again, what are they asking me for? They're asking me for this entire angle. I highlighted it and figured out it's this entire angle. They're equal to each other because of angle bisector theorem. They're going to be equal to each other. So I'm going to say, yes, they're equal, solving them for being equal and solving for x. Again, x is 9. I have to plug it into either one of these. I'm going to go ahead and plug it into the first one. And I got 21. That means both angles are 21. Adding 21 and 21 is going to give me 42. So this entire angle is going to be 42 degrees. And the last question on here, you guys will see a question like this on your test. I told you guys in class that because the answer for this one was going to be a fraction, it is in your best interest to solve it out. Yes, you can totally graph it, but when you graph it and you're looking for that y-intercept, you should have been able to notice that is not directly on an intersection. So I'm not going to get a whole number. So instead of me guessing and say, oh, maybe this is 1.5, you have to solve it. So how are we solving it? It could be done in 3 steps. First thing I did was I took my coordinates and plugged it into the midpoint formula. Or, that's fine, you can graph it and find your midpoint. But again, if you want to be accurate, you can do both. But I solved it to find my midpoint. Do not get rid of this midpoint. You're going to use it solving for your b. Then I found the slope. So again, I used my coordinates, plugged it into the slope formula, and I got 3 as a slope. I need a perpendicular slope. So that means I'm changing it to the opposite, and I'm reciprocating it. It's going to be the reciprocal. So the opposite reciprocal to 3 is -1/3, okay? And keep in mind that that's going to be your slope for your answer. A lot of you guys on the quiz did not put that one as your answer. Your perpendicular slope is the one that goes into your answer. And then I solved. So when I'm solving, I'm taking that y equals mx plus b form, the slope-intercept form, plugging in my new slope, which is what I have in part of my answer. So once you get to step 2, you should have half your answer. And then I'm solving for that slope, that intercept. And I'm using the coordinates of my midpoint. So I'm plugging in for x and y. And then I'm solving for my b. And if you're looking at this, once you get that answer, that's what's going to go at the end of your equation. Okay? Do we have any questions on this first page? Leilani?
Is it okay if I put 4/3?
That's fine, yes. If you changed it to 4/3, that's fine. Or if you put it as a decimal, that's fine as well. Okay, 1.3 is fine. Any other questions on this one? We're good? Okay, go ahead and go to 6.2. So looking at 6.2, it says find the indicated measure, tell which theorem you used. Just so you are aware on the test, you will not have to tell me the theorem, you're just going to have to solve. I mean, it's good to know the theorem to see what you're finding, but you're just going to normally have to solve. You don't have to explain anything. There's no explanation. Okay, looking at number 1, this is circumcenter. How did I know this is circumcenter theorem? Because it's bisecting. Okay, it's bisecting and they're intersecting at the circumcenter. So when you have something that is the circumcenter, you have to know that your vertices to your circumcenter are all equidistant. They're all equal. So if BP is 6, PC is also 6 as well as PA. So my answer should have been 6. Looking at number 2, you will not get a diagram like this on your test. So I understand some of you are like, I don't know what this is, I can't tell. This is still circumcenter theorem, or some students said it's bisecting theorem, perpendicular bisector theorem, which you could have used. If you figure that out, then you should have been able to tell that these lines, PA, PC, and PB, are equidistant from the circumcenter point P. So if you knew that they're all going to be 15 units. Again, this image, this diagram will not be on there. You'll most likely get one that's always a triangle. Looking at number 3. This one's in center. How do I know it's in center? Because I have angle bisectors. And because I have angle bisectors, I know the segments from the side to my in center are all equidistant. So if PN is 11, PL is 11, as well as MP is also 11. Do we have any questions on the first three? Because I saw some hands up. We're good? Do you have a question?
Because, like, I don't understand why it was in center versus circumcenter. Because I literally mixed all of them up. For the first two, I put in center, and for the last one, I put circumcenter.
Okay, so the difference between in-center and circumcenter is, remember, the segments inside, you have angle bisectors and you have perpendicular bisectors. You have to know which one goes with which. Perpendicular bisectors are circumcenter. Angle bisectors are in-center. So if you're looking at the diagram on the first one, these are cutting my segments in half. This is bisecting my segments, while 3 is bisecting my angles. So you have to remember which one goes with which. So in-center is angles, circumcenter is perpendicular bisectors. Okay, so you have to remember that. So like I said, the slide on 6.3, the last one, has all of them together. So you could see all of them separate. Okay. All right, 5 and 6. In the diagram, use the diagram and the given information to find the indicated measure. So here's 5. Looking at 5, again, for this one, it's going to be in center, because looking at this, I know that these are angle bisectors. It's cutting my angles in half. So because I know that, I can go ahead and tell LM or LG, MG, and GN are all equidistant. Okay, they're all going to be equidistant to each other. So then I set them equal to each other. Okay, my measurements right here, I set them equal, and I solve for x. The question is not asking me for x, they're asking for MG and NG. Here's MG, here's NG. All I did was plug in my x, and your answer should have been 10 for each. Number 6, we said this was circumcenter. Again, you will not be given a diagram like this, so if you tried this one and got stuck, that's fine. But looking at this one, if you knew what was equidistant, which are my lines with my little symbols right here, my congruent symbols, and I labeled, that should definitely help. So if you used GE and set it equal to something, your answer would have been incorrect. You had to have used GL, which is right here, and GK, which they're congruent to each other. So I put my marks there. If you solved it correctly, X should have been 5. And then I know some students asked, how do I get GE? Don't forget, they gave you GE. So all you had to do was plug your 5 into GE, and you should have got 17. And then for GL, remember, it's the same as GJ and GK. They're asking for GK. So, I'm sorry, GJ. Ooh, so many letters. They're asking for GJ, so I could have used GL or GK. So for this one, I used GL, and I should have plugged in my 5, and I got 18. Do we have any questions on 6.2? Questions on 6.2? Again, you will not see this diagram here. They will most likely always be given to you as a, I guess, 2D triangle form, not a triangular pyramid. Okay, 6.3. For this one, it says for 1 through 3, point Q is the centroid of triangle JKL. Use the given information to find the indicated segment length. So once I see that word centroid, and they're not giving me my coordinates, I'm going to have my 2/3. So when I'm looking at number 1, I labeled, remember, it's your vertices to your centroid that are 2/3. Those are the only things that are 2/3. Everything else is 1/3. So they gave me AQ, which was 21. And remember that 21 right there is 1/3. So because I know that's 1/3, I know that there are 2 1/3 in my other piece of my segment. So I took that 21 and I wrote it twice over here. So now I'm able to find QL, which is 21 plus 21, that gives me 42. And then just add another 21 and you'll get 63. Looking at number 2, they're giving you JA, the entire segment, which was 72. If you divide that segment by 3, then you should know that this piece of my segment, this 1/3 is going to be 24. We can say this 1/3 is also 23, and this 1/3 is also, 24. Okay, they're all going to be 24. So if you're looking at it, QA is going to be 24, and QJ is going to be 48 because you're just adding it twice. So you have to remember what's 2/3. And then number 3 for this section, they're giving me KQ, which is 10. And again, I need to figure out what that 1/3 is. So you have to divide it by 2. I have 5 and 5. And then QA is going to be 5. Everything is going to be 15. Do we have any questions on these 3? Okay, that's only for centroid. The 2/3 are for centroid. All right, looking at number 4, it says find the coordinates of the centroid of the triangle with these vertices. Plug it into the trick. All your x's added together divided by 3. All your y's added together divided by 3. Please do not leave your answer like this. That's incomplete. You have to simplify it. If your fractions can be simplified, you have to simplify your fraction. Okay? If it's already, like, let's say 4/3, you can leave it as if it's 4/3. You don't have to change it. Yes?
Is that shape going to be like on the test, or is it just like
For the next question?
No, for the oval.
Which shape?
Like in the cube triangle.
Oh, for the next question. For this one. I wasn't there yet.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, for number 5, yes, I understand I did give you an acute triangle. It says I highlighted it. Your test will only be right triangles. So if it's a right triangle, where is your orthocenter? The right angle vertex. It's always going to be that right angle vertex. So again, I'm sorry I gave you an acute triangle. It is inside the triangle. If you graphed it correctly, your answer should have been 1, 3. So you can see I graphed it here. I did my perpendicular segments, not bisector. I'm not bisecting anything. My perpendicular lines from my vertices to my opposite side. So your answer should have been 1, 3. But again, on your test, you will only be given right triangles. And for your right triangle orthocenter, it is your right angle vertex. Jonah, do you have a question?
No.
Okay. All right. Any questions on 6-3? We're good with 6-3? Okay, let's go ahead and go to 6-4. 6-4. Looking at this question, I got a lot of, you guys asked a lot of questions on this. Where is F? So if you read the first question, number 2, it says find the coordinates of the endpoints of mid-segment EF, which is opposite to AC. Here is AC. This is always parallel to AC, and it's the opposite side, okay? So when I'm looking at this one, if I knew mid-segment, that's what they're asking for. My mid-segments are my midpoints, okay? And then you're just connecting the two sides. So first you had to find F, the midpoint for BC. So I plugged it into my midpoint formula, or you could have looked at the graph and gotten your answer. That's fine. So I know my coordinates for F is 4, 1. Then they're asking for E as well. So if you know how to find your coordinates on a coordinate plane, you're going over 1 up 4. This should have been your answer for number 2. Number 4 says state the coordinates of endpoints of mid-segment DF. Again, we already found F. We just have to find the coordinates for D, which is 2, 1, which is your answer. So this one, you're kind of just looking at the graph. All right, 6, 7, and 8. These ones hopefully were pretty easy. But looking at it, it says AB is 16, QS. Remember, it's always double or half. That's all you have to do, either double, multiply something, or divide it by 2. So if AB is 16, you should have multiplied it by 2 to get 32. Looking at the next one, SR was 68. So CA is half of 68 divided by 2, and you should have got 34. And then looking at this one, SR is 42. They want you to find BR. Remember, these are your midpoints. They're halfway. So if this entire thing is 46, this segment is half of 46, which is 23. All right, and then looking at my last three for this section, 9, it says CA is 3x minus 1. Find SR. All you had to do was double CA, which I did right here. And again, they're not asking for x, they're asking for CA. So once you solved it and got x, which equaled 6, all you had to do was plug it into CA, which was 17. Looking at the next one, number 10. QS is 6x. CS was 5x minus 8. They want you to find AB. Remember, AB is half of QS, which is the same measure of CS, and QC. Okay, this is the same as this, which is also the same as AB. So first I had to solve for x. I did QS equals double CS. So I doubled my CS. I solved for x, and then I plugged it back into CS, because CS is the same as AB, and your answer should have been 12. Looking at the last one, number 11, QR was 5x plus 2, CB was 2x plus 5. They want me to find AR. CB is the same measure as QA and AR, so once I get that x, I just have to plug it into my AR. So I doubled CB, I solved for x and got 8, and then I plugged it in to CB to get my AR. So if you solved it correctly, it should have been 21. Do we have any questions on 6-4? Questions, comments, concerns on 6-4? We're good with 6-4? Yes. How do I know that CB is congruent to AR? Because let's say that this measure right here was 14. Remember, this measurement is half this entire line. And this is my midpoint. So that means this is also going to be 14. This is also going to be 14, which gives me the total of 28. So I'm just using numbers as an example. So if I'm looking at it in this, they're telling me this is 28. I need to divide it by 2 to give me 14. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Any more questions on this? No? Okay, let's go ahead and go to 6-5. All right, 6-5. It says list the angles of the given triangle from smallest to largest. So you're always looking at the opposite side for the angle or the opposite angle for the side. So when I'm looking at this, I drew my arrows. It said smallest to largest. So because side or segment 16 is my smallest one, I'm going to look at my opposite angle, which is N. So angle N should have come first. Please don't forget your angle signs. Please don't forget your angle signs. And then 18 is my middle number. So that means angle L is my medium side or medium angle. And because this segment is 30, which is my largest, angle M is going to be my largest angle. All right, looking at number 2. If you plugged in a number, that would have been fine. You could have used 1, you could have used 2, you could have used any number for x. Or you could have just looked at it and said, if I multiply something by 8, it's going to be larger than something if I multiply it by 5. So these two sides were the same measure. So that means angle D and angle F were the same. So whether you put angle D first or angle F first, that was fine. As long as angle E was last, because that's going to be your largest angle. Yes?
What if they put them together? Like just like
What do you mean put them together?
Because I put like angle B slash angle F. That's like the first one. Instead of putting 3, I put 2.
I would still put it with 3. Angle D, comma angle F, or vice versa. Okay. Looking at number 3, it says listed from shortest to longest. So first thing I had to do for this one was find my missing angle. So I added the 2 angles that were given. I got 108 and subtracted from 180. This angle right here is going to be 72. So they said from shortest to longest. So I found my smallest angle, which makes this side shortest. So AB, or you could have put BA is fine if you put BA. And then looking at my middle angle is going to make my side, my medium side, so CA or CB. And then my largest angle makes this side the longest side, which was CB or BC. Okay, if you switch them, that's fine. Looking at number 4, I plugged in for X. I actually solved for X. You didn't necessarily have to do that. If you plugged in a random number for X, you would still get, this is the smallest, this is the medium, this is the largest. So let me just give you an example. If I plugged in 10 for X, this would be 10 degrees, this would be 20 degrees, and this would be 6 degrees. Okay, it's still giving me that small, medium, large. Okay, small, medium, large. So that's just an example that you can use, or you could have solved for X. It wasn't asking for the actual measures. They were just asking you to put it in order. So looking at this one, it should have been, because this is my smallest angle, QP is my smallest side. Or PQ, you could use PQ. Because again, I solved for X, this is my medium side. So PR is my medium angle, or RP. And this should have been my largest, which is QR. Question. Yes.
You said 180 plus 4 equals 176.
You're right. What is it? I should have.
4x minus 4 equals 180. You added 4 to both sides, and then you got 176.
No, it shouldn't have been 176. Oh, that's my mistake. I'll have to change it because this is a PDF. I'll change it on the PDF. But regardless, it should still work out the same. It'll still give you the same answer. Yeah, I'll go change that on the PDF. Okay. Looking at the next one, these two, it's asking, you did not have to construct anything. It's asking, is it possible to construct a triangle with the given side lengths? So looking at this one, you have to take the 2 smallest. Okay, so my 2 smallest here was 15 and 37. So when I'm looking at this, if I could have just stopped here. If I add them and I got 52, remember, the value has to be less than this number. So I should have stopped and said no, but I went ahead and I just checked my work. So I subtracted, and that third value has to be greater than 22, but less than 52, and they're giving me 53. So this one was no. Okay, this one should have been no. And then looking at 6, I did the same thing, and yes, the first one worked because 16 was less. But then I subtracted and I double checked, and your answer for this one should have been yes. Do we have any questions on 6-5? Questions, comments, concerns? Sorry?
Do we have to put like less than, or can we just put like no or yes?
You could have just put no or yes. That's fine.
You didn't be like that on the test.
Maybe. This is definitely the format you have to get used to writing it as. So make sure you get used to that format. All right, and the last section. This one should have maybe been the easiest section. You're using your less than, greater than, or equal to symbols. And you, again, if you explained, great. If you did not, that is fine. So looking at this one, this is my larger angle, which makes AC my greater side. Looking at number 2, because these are both the same measure, the angles are going to be equal to each other. Looking at number 3, because this segment is larger, angle 2 is going to be greater. So the measure of angle 1 is less than the measure of angle 2. And then looking at 4, because this angle is larger, this segment is going to be greater. So KL is less than MN. Any questions on these 4? They're pretty easy. All right, looking at the last 2, 5 and 6. Write and solve an inequality for the possible values of x. Looking at 5. Okay, looking at 5. For this one, if you set the equation up correctly, that was part of your answer. Why? Because if I put x as 0, it's not going to give me the value. So if you set it up correctly and solved, your answer should have been x is greater than 10. And x plus 7 is less than 2x minus 3. Yes.
I did it how we solved it last time, and I got.
If you, so I'd have to see your work for that one. I don't know how you got that. Did you set it up this way and then you solve for x?
Yeah, but then I said that x plus 7 was greater than 0, because that's what we did on the notes. So that's.
Yes, but if you're putting it that way, because it's technically not asking for a specific angle. It's not asking for which angle. It's just asking for a general, is it possible? So I would just leave it as first thing is what you have and then what you solve for. And then that goes into this one. This is the same thing. Your answer would be what you have and then what you solved for. Keep in mind, don't forget, when you're multiplying or dividing by a negative number, you have to flip the sign. So I did not flip the sign here. If you solve this one, you should have gotten 2 is greater than x. I just flipped it to where x is on the left side. So x is less than 2. That's all I did. I flipped it. I didn't flip the sign. I just flipped the entire thing. Yes, Katya.
Do you have to do that?
No, you could have left it like that. That's fine. I just did it that way. So looking at this, any questions on 6-6?
Wait, do you have to write like x plus 7 less than 2?
Yes. Yes. Laura, question? Like I said, I didn't flip the sign. I just flipped my answer. I put my x to the left. So your answer, however you read it, if you put 2 is greater than x, it's the same thing as saying x is less than 2. So I didn't flip anything. All right, any more questions on this review? Yes.
Not on this review, but do you have another review that we can do?
I did post all of the ABs and the extra practice. Okay, I posted it at the end of the module. All right, you guys have your test tomorrow. Please study. Again, it is 20 questions. 10 of them are multiple choice.